Hey fellow mortals, welcome back to Golden RPG. Today we'll talk about the D.e.a.t.h Trap Rogue, one of the fastest leveling builds in Diablo 4. Let's buckle up. D.e.a.t.h Trap build is a relatively new creation in Diablo 4 compared to old faithful build like the Twisting Blades build, which has been popular since the start of Diablo 4. We are now catching on to the power of Trap. Following the release of patch 1.1.1 and the rise of Season 1, Trap Rogues have some buff and receive more playtime than before. Let's take a closer look at this rogue build. For this rogue setup, you must collect all items and legendary aspects below. This allows you to pilot this build at its peak efficiency. Let's look at the changes you need to make to implement them. On the helmet, take cooldown reduction, maximum life, total armor, and crowd control duration. Try to get the cheese aspect for more defense. Down to the tunic, damage reduction is a must-have. Any kind of damage reduction is available, such as damage reduction from enemies that are poisoned, damage reduction from close enemies. The aspect of disobedience also increases your survivability. On the gloves, take as much damage as you can. Focus on crit chance, ranks to twisting blades, attack speed, and lucky hit chance. Your skill will have more chance to stun enemies with aspect of retribution. This one is very simple. Just like the tunic above, get all kinds of DR you can get. Take the aspect of might will increase your survivability, such as increase your armor when you deal damage. And then for our boots, get movement speed and movement speed on elite kill, then focus on more defense. If you can get both of them, that's great. But don't try too hard. One start with movement speed is enough to use. This Ravager's aspect increases one of your main skill damages, so don't forget this one. For the main crossbow, take critical damage, vulnerable damage, and damage to close enemies and some dexterity. The aspect blade dancer is a must-have for this weapon, which makes your blade orbit for a short time. Then for our melee weapons, again, we have a lot of damage here. The same thing on both of them. You want crit strike damage, vulnerable damage, damage to close enemies, and dexterity. The must-have aspect of these weapons is synergy, which is your main source to get cooldown reduction. Then the blast trapper aspect will increase your damage. This rogue build has a signature of high speed, so only movement speed from the boost is not enough. Try to get ranks to weapon mastery, movement speed, cooldown reduction, and energy cost reduction on the amulet. Edge Master's aspect will increase your damage based on dexterity. Then for our ring, again, we have a lot of damage here. The same things on both of them. You want critical strike damage, vulnerable damage, and critical strike chance. Aspect accelerating helps you increase more attack speed when casting Twisting Blades and D.e.a.t.h Trap. You also get more resources when CC and enemies with the Umbral. Let's take a look again before we get to the next chapter. You can pause here to take some notes before we get to the next part. The D.e.a.t.h Trap Rogue is a build focusing on traps, crowd control, and cooldown reduction. What the demons can catch, they can't kill. That's the overarching philosophy of this build. This standard endgame build for D.e.a.t.h Trap Rogue is the build you'll be using most of the time for a wide variety of content. Tree of Whispers, Helltide, dungeons, and most other normal activities. Twisting Blades is our main ability. You stick 2 knives into your enemy, which return to you from the enemy's position after 1.5 seconds, dealing massive damage to anything in a straight line. Poison Trap is a powerful utility tool. While its damage output is secondary, it can trigger various buffs and debuffs that help us out like knockdown, damage reduction, attack speed, and critical chance. Puncture is our basic skill to apply slow, vulnerable, and recover energy. We try to use it as little as possible because outside of keeping us buffs and debuffs, spamming Twisting Blades is more advantageous and deals significantly more damage. Shadow Step is our mobility skill of choice, which we can use as long as there is a target. It allows lightning-fast repositioning for better Twisting Blades coverage and is generally useful to move around the world in outdoor content, for example, to teleport up or down cliffs. Dash is a great universal mobility tool to improve clear speed, dodge attacks, and reposition for better nukes. We use it between packs or to engage. D.e.a.t.h Trap is our ultimate skill and the centerpiece of the build. It pulls in all enemies and deals significant burst damage to everything in a large area. Last but not least, Key Passive Exposure. Combined between these Key Passive and Twisting Blades providing faster cooldown recovery, your ability can be used very frequently. D.e.a.t.h Trap Rogue's gameplay is fast. Twisting Blades is our main damage skill. Against multiple enemies, the idea is to attack a target 1 to 3 times, then run, evade, or shadow step away so that the returning blades can do their job. Combining this with D.e.a.t.h Trap makes it easy to hit most targets in one go and decimate large packs. Puncture is a basic skill that we use whenever we don't have energy. It can also be used to apply extra chip damage and debuffs to the target. Shadow Step and Dash is our mobility skill. It requires a target and should primarily be used to engage new packs, or you can use it whenever you need to go faster, dodge attacks, and engage packs. The best way to use Poison Trap is right after a Shadow Step into the middle of the pack. We also use the trap to trigger vulnerable with Blast Trapper on elites and bosses while enabling other synergies from passives, so use it regularly in combat. D.e.a.t.h Trap is our ultimate skill and can be used frequently because we reset its cooldown with exposure. We use it in large monster packs to pull them in, lock them down, and decimate them. All classes begin with a start board, and then you can choose to attach one of 8 class-specific boards. The start board is the same for all members of a class and cannot be changed. For the D.e.a.t.h Trap Rogue, we will focus on 5 boards, which we will open up in the following order: Closer, Diminish, Combat, Turf, Exploit. The first one is Closer. Adds unconditional extra damage and damage reduction for our main skill. On the starting board, we can stack up to 70 dexterity for it. For the next one, Diminish Glyph, not offering as much damage as other glyphs. We can buff the powerful red nose on the Deadly Ambush board to greatly reduce incoming damage and mitigate the build's greatest weakness. Combat Glyphs increase your critical damage. Twisting Blades is a core skill, and we have a good amount of critical strike chance. 44 intelligence in range on the chip shot board makes this glyph a powerful choice. This glyph offers lots of damage and some damage reduction. It is especially useful against tough enemies that we fight for extended periods. With 44 strength in range, we can get a lot out of it on the Tricks of the Trade board. This is a great source of applying vulnerable on enemies while massively boosting its effect. The best board is No Witnesses, which has 54 strength in range. Try to activate this glyph as early as possible, for example on the Deadly Ambush board, before moving it to the final board. Let's take a look again at the Paragons board. That's all the glyphs you will need, but remember, the priority defends your glyphs level. If you can get them to level 21, try to reach them in this order: Exploit, Combat, Diminish, Turf, Closer. Malignant Hearts are item enhancement that will add power to a gear in a way similar to that of gems or with a potency similar to that of aspects. While many other builds get to enjoy the power of Cage Heart of the Barber, it doesn't fit well into this one. This heart absorbs most of your attacks to deal with a big explosion with a delay, rendering most on-hit effects useless. Here are some best in slot Cage Hearts you should aim for. Cage Heart of Revenge. Add tons of damage reduction that's always useful, granting defensive buffs when you use Defensive, Subterfuge, and Macabre skill. Cage Heart of the Dark Dance. When you have about 60% life, your core skill will consume life instead of your primary resource, gives us free attacks every 5 seconds. Cage Heart of the Vile Apothecary gives us powerful extra damage procs that helps us in all situations. While not the best at doing it, the D.e.a.t.h Trap Rogue is, in fact, Nightmare Dungeon Tier 100 viable. Here are some things to consider if attempting this push. Avoid these Nightmare Dungeon affixes. Monster attacks burn primary resource. Death Pulse. Monsters take less critical strike damage. Monsters resist vulnerable effect. Monsters unstoppable. Empowered elites. Monsters gain barrier. The D.e.a.t.h Trap Rogue is a fun-to-play, fast-paced tactical genius that performs well in almost any scenario. With a range of tricks and devices up your sleeve, you can be sure to have all you need to start a fresh season. Even after the new Path 1.1.1 update, the Poison Trap skill has some upgrades on the damage and not a single nerf. But here are some pros and cons you need to keep in mind before choosing this build. Let's take a look at this clear on Nightmare Dungeon.
Need more time.
That's it for today's build. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more videos. See ya!